So I want to talk about the 5 ways of well-being. And this is an idea that came out of the New Economics Foundation in a report they published in 2008. It's been well used by organisations like Mind, for instance. It's taking the idea of a 5 fruit or veg a day, and saying maybe there are 5 things that we can do that would help us to be better balanced, really, and in our mental well-being. The 5 things are to connect with others, to be active, to take notice, to keep learning, and to give. And if we do those 5 things, it's suggested that we will have a better mental well-being. And it seems to me that a lot of those really do resonate with what we do at church. At church, we do connect with others. We do encourage one another to take notice of the world around us. We do keep on learning. We do give through voluntary activity, through our generosity. And so those 4 of those 5 are really obvious things that we do at church. The one that is perhaps less obvious is the be active. And that's the one I'm going to talk to you about today. But I do want to say, first of all, that I recognise that the church and Christianity are not a self-help programme. So although I'm talking about these 5 ways to well-being, I recognise that Christianity at its core, it's basically a call to follow Christ. And Christ calls us to follow him by taking up our cross. And it is about sacrifice and giving of ourselves. It's not, Jesus doesn't say to us, follow me and I'll make you a really healthy person. And by the way, it's not that. But Jesus does heal people. And he does talk to us about having life in all its abundance. So perhaps, whilst we are following Jesus, God's desire for us is some level of well-being. So to return for a moment to our first of our 5 ways to well-being, be active. In our gospel reading, Jesus goes about amongst them and he sends them out in pairs. Jesus' ministry involves an awful lot of walking. There's a bit of time in boats and there's one ride on a donkey. But there's an awful lot of walking from place to place. How would it have been if there had been cars in those days and Jesus had ridden in a car? Peter as his driver, perhaps, being driven to the next talk that he was giving in Bethany or Cana or whatever. Well, if that had happened, so much of the Gospels would never have happened. Because Jesus, in walking from place to place, encounters people and things happen. So the gospel story that we had last week that Rebecca was preaching on was a woman who was healed of her bleeding. It's a life-changing encounter that she has with Jesus because Jesus is walking from one place to another and she meets him on the way. By walking, Jesus connects with people. He notices things. So much of the stories that he tells are obviously based on his observations as he moves around. He gives to people. He gives healing and teaching and food even. He learns. In many of the encounters that Jesus has, we sense that he's learning himself still. And this happens because he walks from place to place. How do we get around? Well, a lot of us do drive. And nationally, 70% of all journeys that are under 2 miles are taken by car. And if you think about a journey of 2 miles, this is journeys under 2 miles, but even up to 2 miles, a journey of 2 miles takes 40 minutes to walk, or 10 minutes to cycle, maybe 15 if you ride slowly. And yet, such a high proportion of those journeys are made by car. For the sake of our planet, to reduce pollution, perhaps we ought to walk more often or cycle. For our own physical well-being, it gives us exercise when we travel under our own steam. For our own mental well-being, it's good to be active. A lot of research has shown that exercise is good for us in many ways, not just physically, but it helps us to think better as well and to feel better. And this isn't about going to the gym or being super fit. And everybody needs to decide what their own abilities allow them to do, and what would be helpful for them, what would be helpful for you. But this is about building exercise into our life, building activity into our life. Maybe instead of doing a big shop at the supermarket, go out every day to buy what you need. It's not always the cheapest way to do it, but or maybe just to get some of the provisions you need. Build in some level of regular exercise. Using technology can be helpful. I have a Fitbit, but you don't need that. You don't need all the technology. It's just about being aware that exercise and activity is good for us. And it also allows us to have those encounters that we don't have in so many other ways. It allows us also to take notice. We're so much more able to take notice of what's around us if we're walking from place to place. And I suspect that if we are able to walk more, we might even open ourselves up to joining in with God's work in our world. As we connect with those around us, as we notice what's going on, and as we open ourselves up more to those encounters with other people. So I feel that being active in our life can be a good thing for us mentally, a good thing for us physically, but also, quite possibly, good for us spiritually. Amen.